Welcome to hour number 2, the morning after live right here on Sports Grid and Sirius XM channel 159. That's the home for Sports Grid Radio on Sirius XM, all across the Sports Grid network as well. I am Ben Stevens. The one thing we haven't discussed yet on today's program, the National Football League. Week 3 of the preseason starts tomorrow, but we go around training camp for all the NFL news and notes that you need to know. It's fantasy draft season. You're looking forward to this upcoming 2022 NFL campaign, and into the futures market we go. But a tough break of sorts for the Washington Commanders yesterday, although not unexpected necessarily. Third-year edge rusher, defensive end Chase Young, the 2020 NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, was placed on the PUP reserve list by Washington. He will miss at least the first 4 games of this upcoming 2022 season. He played 9 games last year in 2021 before tearing his ACL. He only accumulated a sack and a half after 7.5 sacks in 2020, his rookie season, when he won Defensive Rookie of the Year. So Chase Young still needing his time to recover from that torn ACL, surgery in the offseason, and is working his way back. Washington wants to bring him back, of course, when he is 100% healthy and ready to go. And it was a story for Washington last year, especially on the defensive side of the football, that was different in 2021 from 2020 when they won the NFC East Division, hosted a playoff game, and went toe-to-toe with Tom Brady and the eventual Super Bowl champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because in 2020, that defense under Riverboat Ron Rivera was really, really good. A top 5 scoring defense in the league, only allowing just a tick above 21 points per game to their opponent. Also the third best total defense in the league 2 seasons ago. But last year, as you can see there on that graphic, a different tune for the Commanders. 25.2 points per game given up defensively. That was 25th in the league, or the 8th worst mark in all of the National Football League. So if Washington is going to have more success, even with Carson Wentz now as the new quarterback in and around the nation's capital, defense will be a big reason why. Chase Young will miss the first 4 games of the year, but hopefully will be back healthy soon for the Commanders. And right now, Washington, the 3rd best odds to win the NFC East Division as things stand in this offseason. Again, the Commanders won this division in 2020. It was the Cowboys that won it last year, following that trend of nearly 2 decades of no repeat champions in the NFC East. The team win total this year for Washington is 8.5. The under has the heavy juice at minus 170, and it checks out because Washington has gone under 8.5 wins 6 consecutive seasons, even in 2020 when the Commanders won this division, only finishing at 7-9 in the 2020 regular season. So that's how things stack up in the NFC East right now. And Washington dealt a slight blow, but again, not unexpected after Chase Young missed most of the ending half of last year's season, injuring himself in that 10th game for Washington. He has been placed on the PUP reserve list. The 2020 Defensive Rookie of the Year will miss at least the first 4 games for Washington this year. A welcome to our Sports Grid Radio audience here. The second hour of the morning after now underway all across the grid. Sirius XM channel 159. All of our terrestrial radio affiliates now in the fold as well. I am Ben Stevens. One final week of NFL preseason football before we get to the regular season, which begins just over 2 weeks from today on a Thursday, September 8th in Los Angeles at the home of the reigning Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams, hosting the Super Bowl favorites in the Buffalo Bills. But week 3 of NFL preseason action gets underway tomorrow night on a Thursday evening in Kansas City, Missouri, inside Arrowhead Stadium between 2 frontrunners for that Super Bowl championship with 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And right now, as it stands on the FanDuel Sportsbook, the Kansas City Chiefs will enter that final week of the preseason against the Green Bay Packers as a slight underdog at home. That line has worked in favor of Green Bay. There has been some talk in and around the facilities at Lambeau in Green Bay, Wisconsin, that Aaron Rodgers might see his first preseason action in week number 3. Has not suited up for either of the first 2 games for the Packers so far this preseason. However, we have seen Patrick Mahomes a decent amount through the first 2 weeks for Kansas City. In fact, against Washington in week 2 of the preseason on Saturday. He got the first 2 drives of the game and threw a touchdown pass on each of those opening 2 possessions. Patrick Mahomes against the Commanders, 12 of 19, 162 yards and 2 TDs against the Commanders on Saturday. Patrick Mahomes tied for the second best price to win the NFL MVP, getting ready for 2022 right now on FanDuel at 8-1 alongside Tom Brady. The betting favorite to win the NFL MVP, that would be Josh Allen at plus 700. Aaron Rodgers has won this award each of the last 2 years, a back-to-back MVP. He has the 5th best price, and Justin Herbert there in the middle of those 2 numbers at 9-1 with the 4th best odds on the FanDuel Sportsbook. That's the start of a season in the NFL. It's a postseason perspective in the WNBA. Up next.
Sports Grid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
They play less games.
The early line.
Take a look at the top 4 seeds here in the Big Ten. They're going to play less.
Aaron Rodgers and
the morning
Russell
after.
Wilson. We saw movement in the marketplace like
Orlando
Fantasy
Magic.
sports
the
today.
Cleveland Cavaliers are a little thin as well.
Newswire.
Minus 160 favorite on the money line today for Arizona.
Pharrell coast to
PPG,
coast.
that's where they win cups. They win Stanley Cups over there. Give me the
Game
Penguins.
time
Kind of
decisions.
bizarre when you consider everybody is out for the Warriors.
In-game
Everybody.
live
I
all
like
access.
Vandy. I like Vandy against Bama. I think Vandy can win the game, take a 4.5.
In-game live. Prime time.
The PGA Championship.
In-game live. Overtime.
All done before the final bet.
Get the winning edge. Only on Sports Grid. The morning after.
Kalia Copper was sensational. 21 points for Chicago. And then in game 2, Copper backed it up with 20 more big ones, going over 18.5 for her points prop tonight in each of the opening 2 games. If Chicago is going to win a decisive game 3 on the road in New York, Copper and her outstanding offensive performance will be a reason why. Over 18.5 points.
The Sports Grid Network. The early line.
This non-story is officially over. Tom Brady went away. Why? Because he can. He's Tom Brady. His wife very publicly has wanted him to retire. He did, and then he unretired. So in a meaningless week of practice, he went out and was able to spend some time with his family. Make sure that everything is good. It was reported to be a work-life balance. It was reported that the Bucs knew it was coming.
Only on Sports Grid.
Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports with your daily numbers game with some pretty staggering numbers. First week average viewership, NFL preseason, about 1.7 million and 2.15 million on the high side. Now, put in perspective, Major League Baseball, a little higher at 2. The PGA Tour, first playoff round, about a 3. But let's remember, these are no names vying for non-spots on large rosters and in some cases, tape delay. And here's the bottom line. It is a significant number for people to come back and watch a second time and a third time where they know the score. Same thing for tickets. The 1 home or 2 home alternates this year and the last year are bought as part of the season ticket package. People may grumble, but they certainly take advantage of it, and the NFL's juggernaut continues in earnest. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, Daily Numbers Game.
It's playoff time in the WNBA. The opening round series of the W postseason about to come to a close. A winner-take-all Game 3 tonight in Dallas between the Wings and the Sun. That was the same scenario yesterday in Brooklyn inside Barclays Center between the reigning WNBA champs in the Chicago Sky and the New York Liberty. Welcome back to the Morning After, live here on this Wednesday, all across Sports Grid. Now, although the series was tied at 1, and last night it was in Brooklyn and the Liberty had that home floor advantage for that decisive winner-take-all Game 3, it was Chicago booked as a 7.5-point road favorite. And the Sky made good on that number based on a dramatic ending in that fourth quarter. The Liberty cut it to 3 early on in that final stanza. Chicago then goes on a 16-0 run. The Sky win the game and the series 90-72, covering as a 7.5-point favorite. A total of 165.5 just barely falls under. What a night for one of the best players in the history of the WNBA. One of the career leaders in terms of triple-doubles. Candace Parker showed out on the road in Brooklyn yesterday. 14 points, 13 boards, 8 dimes, just 2 assists away from a triple-double for the Chicago Sky. So Chicago advances to the semifinals. They will await the winner of tonight's decisive Game 3 in Dallas between the Wings and the Sun. Last night in Brooklyn, inside the Barclays Center, Maria Marino of SNY was there taking in that dramatic fourth quarter between the Sky and the Liberty. She joins us now here on the Morning After. Maria, thank you for joining us early on this Wednesday morning following the great Game 3 last night in Brooklyn. Thank you for being here on the Morning After.
Of course. I got to say, it was a little tough to get up for it. I was I was up late at the game, but it was so worth it. It was an amazing atmosphere at Barclays Center. It was a sellout for the Liberty. First playoff game ever for the Liberty in Brooklyn. 5 years since the last home playoff game for the Liberty. So it was really something to see.
And the Liberty did make it a game late in that fourth quarter, or at least early in the fourth quarter, cutting it to just 3. And then Chicago goes on a 16-0 run to pull away and to win by 18, 90-72. Maria, what did you see there late in the fourth quarter that showed why Chicago is the reigning WNBA champs?
The deeper team, the more experienced team, and credit the New York Liberty for forcing a Game 3 and forcing the Sky to travel back to Brooklyn. I think everyone, myself included, was a little shocked that the Liberty won Game 1 in the fashion that they did. They actually looked like the more poised team in that situation. They were the ones closing out the fourth quarter on, I believe it was a 13-0 run. And Sandy Brondello, the head coach of the Liberty, said after the game, as great as that was, she thinks that they woke up the Sky. And I think she's right about that. I mean, the way that the Sky came out in Game 2 and absolutely dominated every single facet from start to finish, and then traveling back to Brooklyn and really being focused and ready to withstand any run by the Liberty. And you're right. I was excited when I saw the end of the third quarter. Sabrina fed Natasha Howard. They got a bucket to cut the lead to 10 heading into the fourth. And then early in the fourth, Sabrina scored 5 points, and they cut the lead down to 3. And I was like, okay, this is exciting, right? But then the Sky took a timeout, and they just really focused up, and it was all them from there on out. And they deserve to be where they are.
Yeah. If the Sky end up winning a second consecutive WNBA title, maybe they send a gift basket of sorts to the Liberty for what New York was able to do in that opening game of the opening round. But right now, Maria, as the Sky get ready for their semifinal series, awaiting the winner of tonight's Game 3 in Dallas between the Wings and the Sun, it is not the Sky as the favorites to win a second straight title. That would be the Las Vegas Aces. Even money at plus 100. The updated numbers this morning, the Sky and the Sun tied for the second best odds at plus 350. So a $2.50 gap between Las Vegas and then to Chicago and Connecticut. Do you think there should be that large of a gap right now in the WNBA playoffs?
Not really. I actually think that Vegas has a tougher road, to be honest. They have to go through Seattle, and Seattle has shown their experience, their poise. They have the other, I would say, MVP favorite in Breanna Stewart. So, I don't know. I think Chicago has shown over these last two games that they're really very much the same team as they were last year. Excuse me. They've replaced Emma Miesemann or Stephanie Dolson for Miesemann. But other than that, I mean, they have all that same experience. Courtney Vandersloot is just playing so well. I mean, she always does this. Yep. She always does this. But I'm so in awe about her ability to not only find her teammates, and she had 10 assists again last night, but to recognize when she needs to score. And then, Candace Parker, a near triple-double. So I really feel very good about the Sky, and they're going to obviously face the winner of Connecticut and Dallas. And I feel less confident about those two teams than I do the other side of the bracket.
A winner-take-all Game 3 tonight in Dallas. The Wings at home, but a 6.5-point underdog. How do you break down this matchup, Maria, between the Sun and the Wings tonight?
This is going to be wild. I mean, I was a little stunned about how the Sun went about losing that last game on their home floor. Yep. The Wings really just were in the driver's seat the whole game. And, late in the game, Connecticut made a run and made it interesting. But Connecticut, I'm just surprised that it took sort of that type of effort. I mean, it would be one thing if they were on the road, but for them to not close that out, I'm not feeling super confident about Connecticut. I still think in the end they're the most, they're the more experienced, and, much like the Sky, they could very well close things out tonight. But it's going to be interesting. Arike Gumbawale on Dallas is now listed as probable, coming off an injury that she's had since early August. So it's going to be very curious how Vicky Johnson's going to deploy her. Is she going to be somewhat limited? But I still think Dallas better go through Marina Maybury because she's had the hot hand all playoffs.
Connecticut won Game 1 on their home floor by 25. And then, as Maria mentioned, the reason there is a Game 3 tonight, winner take all in Dallas, is because the Wings won by 11 in game number 2 in Connecticut over the weekend. Keep an eye on Jonquel Jones. Her points prop tonight, 19.5. 20 and 19 so far in the two games against the Dallas Wings. Maria, you mentioned the semifinal series that we already know the two teams in there, the betting favorites to win the title, the Las Vegas Aces, the top seed in the postseason, against Sue Bird, Breanna Stewart, and the Seattle Storm, the number 4 seed right now. The Aces, the outright favorite to win the series, at a minus 230 number. How competitive do you expect this semifinal matchup to be?
I expect it to be very competitive. It's interesting, Sue Bird in her final year, it's not like all year long she's been putting up these crazy numbers, but when it counted, I mean, again, she gets to double-digit assists the other night. And we always talk about longevity of careers, but longevity doesn't mean as much if you're not playing at a super high level. And Bird is showing that she is still very much capable of playing at that elite level. And she also has that playoff sort of clutch gene. And then Stewie is as sound as they come. I'm curious if Vegas is going to get a little too hopped up. They got to stay focused and composed, but they are just itching, obviously, to finally bring a championship to that franchise.
It is a great time of year in the WNBA. Maria Marino, thank you for your insight. More TMA up
Thank you.
Your heart's racing. The clock's running out. It all comes down to this. We're talking pregame. 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 Get locked in with Game Time Decisions. Your hosts, Gabe Morency and Cam Stewart, will get you ready for game time. Everything you need to know before a game goes off the board, with the best slips to back it up. Make your best bet with live odds updates, late breaking news, up-to-the-minute injury reports, and real-time analytics from inside the sportsbooks. All the odds, all the action, from sports wagering insiders and industry pros like Donnie Rightside, Cam Lou, Cousin Sal, the Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow, and more. Get the winning edge every weekday afternoon from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 4 Pacific. It's Game Time Decisions. Only on Sports Grid.
You might be the next daily fantasy millionaire. No matter what you watch or where you play, learn from the world's best DFS players. Lineup building tools, expert projections, and advanced stats change the way you play the game. Dominate the competition. DailyRoto.com, the player's choice.
The morning after.
What was your reaction to the Yankees taking Game 1 of the Subway Series last night, even up against Max Scherzer?
You know, let's work backwards. Started with Jonathan Loaizaga. They need to kind of piece together the closer situation. That was the thing that struck me. Of course, we can talk about Aaron Judge and, homer number 47 and all that cool stuff, but I want to talk about the setup guy that was having a down year that might turn into the closer down the stretch, because that's what, baseball is, right? It's all about the boring stuff.
The Sports Grid Network. Fantasy Sports Today.
Michael Pittman did put together somewhat of an impressive season. He ended up being wide receiver 13 in fantasy. I guess what owners are hoping for based on his positional rank going into this year is that he just is a little bit more consistent, and honestly where he's being drafted, giving you about 15 to 20% more numbers, about 1,200 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns.
The Sports Grid Network. The early line.
They sent out a Jordan Montgomery, who evidently is the best pitcher in baseball. I know it's the Cubs. I don't care. A complete game one-hitter.
And how about this, too? On the road in Chicago at Wrigley against one of your hated rivals here. Now, we know the Chicago Cubs aren't having a great season by any stretch of 52-69, but isn't these are the type of wins that you need?
Only on Sports Grid.
It's postseason time in the world of sports, and live on this Wednesday right here on Sports Grid and the morning after. From the WNBA playoffs to the FedEx Cup finale and the Tour Championship this week to end out the PGA Tour playoffs and this season. Welcome back to the morning after, live right here on a Wednesday. If there is golf to be discussed, that means only one thing on TMA. Our golf expert, Cam Rodgers, the host of the Lock It In podcast for Believe, now joins the show. And Cam, before we get to the Tour Championship, of course, all summer long, all season long on the PGA Tour, we have followed the battle between the PGA Tour and Live Golf and some of the changes the PGA Tour has been tasked with making to keep up in the race to stem their players from leaving for Live Golf. We talked about that big meeting last week ahead of the BMW Championship with Tiger Woods in appearance orchestrating the show. And some breaking news here on this Wednesday, as you shared out, some significant changes coming to the PGA Tour. Cam, what is all involved, and what was your reaction to this news on this Wednesday?
What's going on, Ben? This is huge. The timing is beautiful here with me coming on your show, and here's what I will tell you. Your move, Greg Norman, because this was significant news. I am golf clapping Commissioner Jay Monahan right now, because you have to wonder if the likes of Cam Smith and others are now rethinking their decision to leave for Live Golf. What were the things that I was harping on, Ben, for the last few weeks here? Number one, money for missed cuts. Check. It's not a lot, but it's money. It'll at least cover these travel expenses for these guys. Guaranteed money, a stipend. Check. $500,000. And for those rookie golfers, they get it up front. Check big time there. 12 elevated events, averaging a $20 million purse. That rivals the average purse for Live Golf. check there. So those are the big-time hitters. Of course, there are other elements to this as well. There were rumors, of course, that the PGA Tour was going to give up its nonprofit status. That did not happen. At least it was not announced today by Jay Monahan. But these are significant changes here to the PGA Tour, and it tells me that Monahan did indeed really feel this sense of urgency to change things. Otherwise, more top-tier golfers are going to leave for the LIV Tour. One note, Ben, by the way, for those LIV golfers out there who are now thinking, maybe I'll just leave and come back to the PGA Tour, Jay Monahan said today he will not allow it. But again, big-time news here for the Tour and for LIV Golf. I think they're shaking in their boots a little bit.
Very cut and dry, in fact, in PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan's response to that question. If LIV golfers wanted to reconsider their status on the PGA Tour, would you allow it? He said, no, that was it. You say Commissioner Jay Monahan, I say Commissioner Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. But if it's been all about money, LIV Golf, at least the PGA Tour, is starting to open up the pocketbooks. All part of celebration to keep the PGA Tour up there in those ranks. A celebratory environment at Eastlake this week in Atlanta for the Tour Championship, the FedEx Cup playoffs finale. And Cam, as we know, it's a different format this week based on where you are in the standings entering this season finale. You start with a certain amount of strokes, as you can see on that graphic, for the 30 players in this field. How do you explain the format, Cam, for this week at the Tour Championship?
Yeah, this is a relatively new format here at Eastlake, and I love it. I think it's interesting, and it also really just whittles down this field in the outright market too, and we'll get to that in a minute here. But Scottie Scheffler is your pole position guy because he is number one in the FedEx Cup point standings. He's there at 10 under par. We've got Patrick Cantlay, who won last week at 8 under par. Will Zalatoris was 7 under par. He withdrew due to a back injury. I really feel for that guy because he would have been in for a big-time paycheck if he had a good week here at Eastlake. So really feel for Willie. Hopefully he gets better soon. Xander Schauffele at 6, Burns at 5, down the line from there. The logic why we do this starting stroke situation is you avoid the awkward scenario where one person wins the Tour Championship, but another person wins the FedEx Cup playoffs. Like we had that with Tiger back in 2018. A couple other times actually involving Tiger as well, Ben. So we do avoid those scenarios. And so as far as handicapping this week is concerned, you're not going to get rich. Of course, you can bet on FanDuel with just the lowest 72-hole score. Those have the regular outright odds, but it's still 29 players, Ben. So, don't go crazy with the bankroll here this week is what I'm saying.
Yeah, a tough break for Will Zalatoris. 2 herniated discs in his back left it all out there in the first event of the FedEx Cup playoffs in Memphis. But Willie Z not only withdrawing from this event, he was 3rd in the standings. He will also miss the President's Cup later on this fall. So a tough break there. We wish Will the best recovery out there. So, Cam, you mentioned it. It's a different format. The handicap has to change. How does it for the Tour Championship?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, you can bet 2 ways here this week in the outright market. You can incorporate those starting strokes, and then you can just do it as if they were playing from even par from Thursday morning. We're talking about Eastlake Golf Club, by the way. I want to talk about this golf course, par 70, 7,300 yards. Big key is par 4 scoring for me here this week. Also, approach game, interestingly, not so important here at this particular tournament. I'm looking at putting. I'm looking at driving ability here in terms of actually winning or getting that lowest score in the 72 holes. So as far as the outright market is concerned, when you are applying the starting strokes, please, folks out there, do not waste your money. It's either going to be Scottie Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, or Patrick Cantlay. Interestingly, the withdrawal of Will Zalatoris really just narrows this field down to 3 guys. Do not go for any other inflated number. It's not worth it. I'm pretty sure in the history of the Tour Championship, with these starting strokes applied, guys outside of the top 4 have never won here, all right? So really, it's a 1 in 3 shot of getting that outright pick correct. I'm going with Patrick Cantlay this week to get it done, Ben, applying those starting strokes.
He starts at 8 under par. Scotty Scheffler is in first. He starts at 10 under. Patrick Cantlay, victorious last week in Delaware at the BMW Championship, also won the FedEx Cup a season ago. So, Cam, there's a market out there that intrigues me because if it's based on starting strong, maybe making up some ground and just focusing on how you perform this week at East Lake, it's a market we don't often talk about. The round one leader who starts the best on Thursday's opening round. Would you look there this week if in weeks past you don't?
Yeah, usually I don't, Ben. I mean, I usually just gloss over that one because it's just lighting your money on fire. But when you whittle down this player pool to 29 guys, I mean, you might as well throw some cash down. I mean, we're talking about Adam Scott at 500 to 1? Stop it. I could totally see him being actually, you know what? When I'm looking at this right now, this could be applying the starting strokes. It is. So sorry for that confusion there. Scotty Scheffler, minus 140. I would rather go Patrick Cantlay there and get the plus money. So I'm pivoting a little bit. Excuse me there. Plus 220, Patrick Cantlay, first-round leader. I got him winning this thing. I think he is the hotter player. This is a relative term, considering two elite players here. But, you're not laying the juice in this scenario. Patrick Cantlay fires a 4-under score, and Scotty Scheffler goes 1 under. Boom, you get your first-round leader with Patrick Cantlay. So you can apply that same logic, then, to, the outright market with the starting strokes applied to this market here, first-round leader. It's probably only going to be one of those three guys, Scheffler, Cantlay, or Schauffele.
I think it's a great look at a different market than maybe we normally talk about for any regular PGA Tour event. And the starting strokes are going to be confusing for everybody. So maybe that takes us to a match bet. Who's going to have a better week? Starting strokes also involved here, so pay attention to that. But you're not worried about winning the FedEx Cup necessarily, as just your performance this week at East Lake. There's a market where Rory McIlroy is a heavy favorite, Cam, against Tony Finau. What's your approach to match betting this week for the Tour Championship?
Yeah, and FanDuel's doing us some favors here, too. They're pairing up guys who have the same scores for the most part for this week here. And so with Rory McIlroy and Tony Finau, I am taking the plus money all the way. Tony Finau riding a hot putter right now. We know Rory McIlroy can get a little ice cold with the flat stick. Finau has been playing great this summer. Ben, we've talked about him a lot. I consider him an elite golfer, obviously, at this point in his PGA Tour career. I can't lay that juice with Rory McIlroy, so I will go with Tony Finau there and feel pretty confident about it.
All right, Cam, the final FedEx Cup event, the finale at the Tour Championship at East Lake. Take us through the final card for this PGA Tour season.
It's been a pleasure, Ben. Here we go. Outright starting strokes applied. Patrick Cantlay, plus 380. Hammer that. Sungjae Im is your 72-hole leader, not applying the starting strokes. He's 22-1. He's really been playing well so far this year. Multiple runner-up finishes recently as well. The iron game isn't great, but the putter can get really hot. That's what you want here this week. I like that play. Cam Smith could be reconsidering Live Golf minus 115 for a top 10 here this week. You're going to have to lay some juice when you're making these plays here at the Tour Championship. I'll do that with Cam, top 4 on tour and par 4 scoring average, number 3 in approach, number 3 in Bermuda putting as well over the last 24 rounds. John Rahm, top 10, minus 150. Why not? Starting at 10th position. I don't think he'll move behind that as we move forward here this week. Top 10 on tour and par 4 scoring, ranked 8th in strokes gained putting a week ago, Ben. And then finally some matchups: Neiman over Hovland, Finau over McIlroy, like I mentioned, Cantlay over Scheffler. Win some money, folks.
That's all we can hope to do. What a great card it was. What a great season on the PGA Tour it has been. Cam, we are not done talking, but enjoy the FedEx Cup finale at the Tour Championship this week at East Lake. Cam Rodgers, the host of the Lock It In podcast for Believe. More the morning after. Up next.
Might be the next daily fantasy millionaire. No matter what you watch or where you play, learn from the world's best DFS players. Lineup building tools, expert projections, and advanced stats change the way you play the game. Dominate the competition. DailyRoto.com, the player's choice.
The morning after.
Who wins the American League Central?
I recently had a change of heart here, and it's the Cleveland Guardians. I think that the Guardians are going to win the American League Central. I think that what they do in terms of offensive depth, I know we talked about that with Houston a couple weeks ago. I think that Cleveland runs out an incredibly deep lineup. I also think that they run out a very solid front three in that rotation with Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie, and Cal Quantrill.
The Sports Grid Network. Fantasy Sports Today.
Now at tight end, Mo Alley Cox Davis is one of those. I feel like over the course of 17 games, I'm going to be doing a show with you, or I'm going to watch a show somewhere else, and someone's going to tell him this is the week at DFS to play Mo Alley Cox.
I think the thorn in his side, though, is going to be the tight end that they drafted in the third round this year to kind of take up some of those Jack Doyle snaps, who is Jelani Woods.
The Sports Grid Network. The early line.
The team that got a lot of people excited, Nebraska. The second best odds to win the Big Ten West. Donnie, last year this team won 3 football games. Only 1 win in Big Ten play.
But if you're looking like a team total guy like myself, even a win total guy, you're going to be looking at Nebraska saying something has to change, and maybe the quarterback change is what they need.
Only on Sports Grid. Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
Do you believe he has the stones to fire both of them? His dad would have.
I don't. I think Boone is safe, no matter what happens. Maybe if they don't win the East, but that's almost impossible. So I think he's safe. Cashman's contract, I believe, is up after this year. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I would think he'd be in a lot more trouble than Boone would.
The Sports Grid Network.
We're just over 2 weeks away from the start of the NFL regular season in 2022, and tomorrow begins week 3 of the final week of the NFL preseason, and the Green Bay Packers in that first game of week 3 of this preseason. So joining us now here on the morning after, live on this Wednesday, it is Andy Herman, the owner of a Pack-A-Day podcast covering the Green Bay Packers all season long. Andy, how has your summer been? How has training camp been there in Green Bay? What is the mood around this Packers organization as we get ready for 2022?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Great chatting with you as always. Mood is good. Summer's been great. The weather in Green Bay has been beyond beautiful for training camp every day. Every single picture that I'm posting of practice is, blue skies, sunny, 80 degrees. Couldn't be more perfect. But a lot of good vibes coming out of Green Bay. I think there's a ton of optimism about this defense that, for the first time probably since, 2010 Super Bowl, that, they think that this could be a potential defense that is more ahead of the offense and maybe is actually the unit that leads this team into the promised land. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers is still balling out. A lot of buzz about Jordan Love. So a lot to talk about with the Packers, that's for sure.
And Green Bay in a very similar position, Andy, from that odds perspective, entering a new NFL season, tied for the second best price to win the NFC Championship, top 5 in their odds to win Super Bowl 57. What do you believe is the ceiling for Green Bay entering 2022?
Yeah, no, I think that's very, a realistic opportunity, at that sort of odds. I think Green Bay has a legitimate chance to win a Super Bowl. And I think what Green Bay is banking on is that they can have a top 5 defense. You look at the starting defense in Green Bay right now, right? You've got Kenny Clark, first round pick. You've got Dean Lowry, who they've put money in, Jerron Reed, who they've put money in. On the edges, it's Rashawn Gary, first round pick. On the other edge, it's Preston Smith, bunch of money in. Quay Walker, first round pick. Devondre Campbell, bunch of money. Then at corner, Jair Alexander, first round pick. Eric Stokes, first round pick. Rasul Douglas, money. Adrian Amos, money. Darnell Savage, first round pick. They've either put in a bunch of top end picks or they've put in a bunch of money into free agents to build this entire defense. The optimism is extremely high. They have beat the offense, and I would say all but one day of practice so far. They've been incredibly stingy. They were ridiculous against the Saints in the combined practices, getting pressure after pressure after pressure. The front seven looks amazing. They're hoping that former Raiders head coach from a season ago, Rich Bisaccia, can fix a special teams unit that was arguably maybe the worst special teams in the history of football and lost them a playoff game a season ago. If they can even be 25th in special teams, that will be a massive improvement. And then you've got Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon doing the heavy lifting, and they're hopeful that Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari can come back and anchor an offensive line that should be improved if they can get those two guys back. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be bullish on this team.
Andy, oftentimes when you mention the Green Bay Packers and contending for an NFC championship or a Super Bowl victory, it focuses on Aaron Rodgers in the offense. But do you think that defense is the more important unit in terms of reaching the promised land this year?
Yeah, I think it can be. And I think that's still going to be remain to be seen. I remember a couple of years ago when the Packers beat the Bears, I think it was 2019, in the opening game of the regular season. I think it was like a 10-3 game. And after the game, Aaron Rodgers said, "We've got a defense." And no, they didn't. They just played Mitch Trubisky in the Chicago Bears offense. And I think there is a legitimate opportunity for this defense to be really good. But you go back to last year, and they had a lot of the same guys. Now, Jair Alexander was out with injury. At the time, Zadarius Smith was out with injury. And so they fought through some of that. But this was a defense that was improved. But you look at the DVOA and just kind of how they overall performed, and they were still bottom half of the league in defense. So to go up into a top 5, top 10 defense, situation, it's going to take some work, time, effort, energy, and they're going to have to play better than they did a season ago. I think, like I said, there's a ton of optimism there, and I think on paper it looks great. In camp, they've looked great, but they're still going to have to go out and prove it on Sundays. In the meantime, I think they're going to need this offense and this special teams to play different than they have in the past. If this is going to be a defense-led team, we know that Aaron Rodgers and the offense is going to take great care of the football. They always do, but I think they're going to have to maybe be a little less aggressive on fourth downs or giving the team, the opposing team the ball in plus territory. And I think the special teams is going to have to be competent, so you're forcing these offenses to go 80-plus yards against your defense. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a change in dynamic, but I do believe that this defense could lead the way for the Packers.
And the path for the Packers to an NFC championship is always the same, taking care of your own division in the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers have won this division 3 consecutive years. The odds-on favorites entering 2022 at minus 155. Andy Herman, will the Green Bay Packers make it 4 straight NFC North championships this upcoming season?
I think they will, and I would put it even at better odds than that. I mean, listen, the Bears are going to be arguably one of the worst teams in football. I do think the Lions are intriguing / interesting, but I think going from where they've been to all of a sudden the best team in the NFC North with Jared Goff at quarterback, I think is a bit of a stretch. And then I think the Minnesota Vikings, I look at it in 2 ways for the Vikings and the Bears, right? The Bears know who they are. They are rebuilding. They are, in a way, sort of tanking-ish, trying to give Justin Fields just enough to see if he is anything, or they'll go probably with a quarterback next year. They know who they are, and they're sort of in rebuilding mode. The Vikings are sort of, in my opinion, in no man's land. They are trying everything they can to keep this team together with Kirk Cousins and surround him with enough talent to try to go out and win a division. I think they're going to come up just a little bit short in that. And unless Green Bay has any sort of catastrophic injury, particularly to Aaron Rodgers, it just seems to me that this is very clearly a top 7 team in the NFC. This is going to be the NFC North champion. And that's all great and fine, but they've been a NFC North champion and 13-win team in 3 straight seasons with Matt LaFleur, and they have 2 playoff wins to show for it. So whether they finish 1st or 7th, whether they win the NFC North or get a wild card, I think is almost irrelevant for the Packers. I know from a betting standpoint it's not, but for the Packers, they just got to play their best football in January and February.
And I think that's the point for Green Bay in 2022. A 13-win team, 3 straight years. A divisional champion, 3 straight years. The number 1 overall seed in the NFC postseason in back-to-back years, but did not appear in the Super Bowl. So, Andy, in your mind, what has to change this year in 2022 for Aaron Rodgers and the rest of the Green Bay Packers to reach Super Bowl 57?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that they need to evolve come postseason time. I think the best teams in the postseason are playing their best football, and they're playing a different brand of football than they did in the regular season. I think Green Bay over the past few seasons has sort of played their best football in the regular season, and then they got to the postseason and they didn't have another gear. They didn't have another option. They didn't have something else planned that they could do and go and execute on come postseason time. I think they're just going to have to be better prepared and be, just play their best brand of football come January and February instead of October and November. I think that's the biggest thing. And then, as I mentioned, this can't be the worst special teams in the world ever again. They're going to have to be competent on special teams. I don't even know that they need to be a top half of the league special teams, but if they can be respectable 20th overall in special teams, it's going to be a huge leap for this team. I think they have to be more reliable on defense so that it's not these peaks and valleys where you see flashes of greatness, but then you see them give up yards after yards after yards. And I think on offense, it's going to have to be sort of that same not turning the ball over mentality, but they're going to have to find ways to be explosive as well. I think when this wide receiver group is going to be, for the most part, fine, and these weapons are going to be fine. But I think where Green Bay is going to really learn something about themselves are in the 3rd and 10 situations, the 3rd and longs, where you need a wide receiver like a Devonte Adams, like they've had in the past, that can get open in those situations, even when the team is focusing on him. In the playoffs, when things get tighter and everyone's jammed and everyone's held and guys are, struggling to separate, who on this offense is going to be that guy that's going to pick up the key first downs when they need it? So those are the things that I think they're going to need to overcome. But again, I think they have some answers built in with this defense and, of course, Aaron Rodgers at quarterback.
Andy Herman from the Pack a Day podcast joining us here on the Morning After live on this Wednesday. And Andy, we showed those playoff records around the NFL since 2008 when Aaron Rodgers became the starter in Green Bay. If there is a small, very small blemish on Rodgers' record, it is that lack of overall success of getting to the biggest stages throughout his postseason career. But the resume for Aaron Rodgers speaks for itself. A back-to-back NFL MVP, both in 2020 and last year in 2021. The 5th best odds to make it 3 straight this upcoming year. Andy, what do you expect out of Aaron Rodgers this year in 2022?
Yeah, what I can go off of is what I've seen at training camp every day, and that's Aaron Rodgers looks exactly like Aaron Rodgers. I would expect nothing different than what we've seen over the past couple seasons. He looks incredibly accurate. He looks incredibly mobile. He looks in fantastic shape. His arm is as live as ever. There's nothing that I could point to in training camp and what I've seen so far to be like, yep, there could be a decline here. Watch out. Let's see what happens. This looks exactly like the same Aaron Rodgers that I've seen over the last 3 seasons with Matt LaFleur at the helm. And I would expect nothing different this upcoming season. We know Devonte Adams isn't going to be there and they're going to have to change up some weapons. But I do believe if they can get healthy along the offensive line, David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, with some of these young players like Josh Myers and John Runyon Jr., I think the offensive line can be much improved. They're going to get Robert Tonyan back at some point, which is one of his favorite weapons 2 seasons ago. Jones and Dillon is one of the best, running back tandems in the NFL. And I think this wide receiver is going to be able to the wide receiver room is going to sort of be able to Frankenstein enough together with some playmaking from Christian Watson, some possession wide receiver stuff from Alan Lazard. I think Sammy Watkins will give them a little bit something different. Randall Cobb will be that slot guy. I think they have just enough. Romeo Doubs has been fantastic in training camp and preseason so far, that they have some unique things that they can throw at defense. And Matt LaFleur is such a mismatch coach. I think he has a lot of different, weapons in his arsenal that he can go to in different situations.
And as we see the stats, Andy, for Devonte Adams, of course, there have been some changes for this Packers organization this offseason. Devonte Adams, since 2014, nearly a decade in the NFL, has been a top 5 receiver, pretty much based on every number and metric out there. So you mentioned some of the ways they'll try to replace that production. Do you think the offensive scheme at all will change this year, or will it still be focused around number 12 and green?
Oh, it's 1,000,000% going to change, but I think it's going to be interesting in the fact that I think we're really going to see a lot more of Matt LaFleur's offense. In fact, in the 7 games where Devonte Adams has been out, I think we've really seen what Matt LaFleur wants this offense to be. And I think it's so easy when you have arguably the greatest wide receiver in football as an absolute cheat code who can get off the line of scrimmage against any corner and has so many different route concepts that he can run and beat corners with and beat them very quickly, that you just look at that side and say, all right, we're going to throw to Devonte Adams 20 times a game, and I know he's going to continue to get open. But I think you sort of get in patterns, and we saw that against the 49ers where Rodgers was targeting Adams when he wasn't necessarily open. I think we're going to really see this Matt LaFleur offense flourish in the fact that he wants to really take advantage of mismatches and run his style of offense, spread the ball around, make it so it's not quite as predictable. Don't get me wrong, Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur, this entire offense would love to have Devonte Adams here still. It's not going to be easier. It's not going to be better, but I think we're going to see the true version of this Matt LaFleur offense.
And by the way, Romeo Doubs has shot up the board in terms of Offensive Rookie of the Year based on reports out of Green Bay during training camp. Now 14-1, the sixth best price on the FanDuel Sportsbook. All right, Andy, NFL preseason week 3 starts tomorrow night inside Arrowhead between the Chiefs and the Packers. And we've seen some move on this number now in favor of Green Bay, laying a point on the road. Will we see Aaron Rodgers tomorrow night to end out the regular season for Green Bay? Only about a minute left in this segment.
Yeah, no, it was just announced by Matt LaFleur that he is going to rest his starters in this game. So we are not going to see Aaron Rodgers. We are not going to see any of the players that we have not seen in the first 2 preseason games. We'll see some of the starters along the offensive line, Quay Walker, Devonte Wyatt, some of the rookies. We might see Christian Watson make his debut if he's healthy enough to go. That'll sort of probably be a game time decision. So we're going to see some of the younger players. We're going to see some of the players that we've seen in these last 2 preseason games, but the starters, Aaron Rodgers, not going to be available in this game for Matt LaFleur and the Packers.
So a ton of Jordan Love, then we presume, tomorrow night in Kansas City. Andy Herman of the Pack-A-Day podcast breaking down the season outlook for Green Bay this upcoming season. Andy, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it, Ben. Have a good one.
We round out the show here on the morning after. Up next on Sports.
If you want to pick like a pro, you need to be in the know. The future of sports gaming is now, and we take you inside the lines, breaking down all the action and what it means for your bet slip. Turn down the game and tune into Sports Grid Radio. Other networks talk sports talk, but we walk the walk, right up to the window. Sports Grid Radio.
Listen free on the Sports Grid Radio app, iHeart, or TuneIn, or catch us on SiriusXM Sports Grid Channel 159.
Maurice Allen, 2015-2016 European Long Drive Tour Champion, 2017 World Number 1. Me personally, I keep my game face on me all the time. Especially coming out of the bunker, leaving the range, or even leaving the course. What's your story?
The morning after.
Why are you buying in on Dylan's stock for 2022?
Aaron Jones has been remarkably consistent for the Packers, and I kind of see him playing almost Alvin Kamara role in the slot, sitting about wide. And I think they're going to try and save him from taking this, ground and pound, and they're going to leave that role to A.J. Dillon to have this kind of more of a balanced approach because they need a little more consistency in their passing game. I think it helps that the Packers' offensive line is right now ranked 5th.
The Sports Grid Network. The Early Line.
Football is always so much fun because you see new players literally every single year, and the anticipation is stupendous once it gets underway. And we're really close to that. A 12:30 game overseas this weekend between Northwestern and Nebraska. And yeah, you're going to settle into Connecticut playing Utah State with a 27.5-point line. Everybody gets in the way. Big Ten, Pac-12. We cannot wait for this.
Only on Sports Grid. Fantasy Sports Today.
The running back that appears to make the biggest jump maybe in the last 2 months, maybe in all of fantasy, honestly, Davis, is Damien Pierce, who played for the University of Florida. And the beef that went on at Florida, Davis, is that people wanted to see him get the ball more. He really was never a primary running back at Florida. He's sort of a throwback guy in the sense that you give him the ball, he's never going to lose yards.
The Sports Grid Network. Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
This is yet, I'm told, at least the fourth different offense that Mayfield has to learn as a professional in his 5 years. And from the very start, Pharrell, they kind of knew it. I'm told after 2 weeks, he was so dominant over Darnold. It wasn't bad, but the fact of the matter is his timing was good. I'm told a couple of the throws a little bit high. They feel that the timing will be better as these guys work together.
the Sports Grid Network.
Closing out our 2 hours together here live on the morning after on this Wednesday on Sports Grid. Sirius XM channel 159. That's the home for Sports Grid Radio on Sirius XM. All across the Spiz Grizz network. That's Sports Grid. I am Ben Stevens. We are 3 days away from the start of the 2022 college football season. Saturday begins Week 0 to kick off the 2022 CFB campaign. You know how fired up I am for that Dublin debut between Nebraska and Northwestern, but it's just Week 0. Week number 1 is next Saturday, the full true Saturday slate to start things off for the 2022 college football campaign. Of course, we have 3 top 25 ranked matchups, but the game I might most be excited by happens in the Swamp in Gainesville between the Gators and Utah. And we've seen the line move in favor of the Utes, which leads us to a bigger picture discussion. As we say farewell, as we say goodbye, it's time for a college football playoff best bet. It is time for bye, bye, bye. Now, I thought I was going to be unique, maybe out on my own hill by myself this year and picking Utah to win the Pac-12 and thus have the Utes making the college football playoff. But if you follow anybody in college football media, I'm not alone. A lot of people optimistic about Kyle Whittingham and the Utah Utes this year. Their win total is 8.5 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. The over is juiced at -170. They've gone over that number in 6 of the last 7 full years, including 9 wins a season ago. And Utah's odds to make the college football playoff tied for the 7th best price on the FanDuel Sportsbook. I think it is a great number. Give me the Utes at +600 to be one of my 4 teams to make the college football playoff this year. And oh, by the way, that line for their Week 1 opener in the Swamp, Utah was originally booked as an underdog, now a 2.5-point favorite. Thank you for joining us on the morning after on this Wednesday. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Ben Stevens, and we'll talk then.